And when you take these people and you meet them face to face on the cobblestone streets of Parliament, as people like to call it.
Mm-hmm.
But basically what you do, when I went to court, one time, I was met by a coalition of different people, different faiths, different religions, and they decided to throw eggs, throw rotten tomatoes, talk about how un-American you are, or on this, or on that, or how God doesn't appreciate such things, and just, I've been spit on. I've been in physical confrontations. I never let it get past that point. If people wanted to lay their actual hands on me, we had altercations. But there were some really, really crazy events. I've had people, pull up where I was talking on the sidewalk to news reporters and things of that. And I've had actually people drive their cars up on the sidewalk because they wanted to run me over because I wasn't patriotic.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You were seen as a traitor, which in reality, which is so ironic because you are the antithesis of it. You are the true, I don't even want to use the word patriot because it's not sufficient, it's not enough, but you're the one really truly standing up for mankind. In the greater, bigger sense. So, what could be more treasonous than contradicting, the rights of mankind?
I think where people really need to really get into this is to understand that patriotism and being patriotic is for a country or a community. Mm-hmm. And that's a good thing. It's the start of what I call local government. Mm-hmm. However, people must grasp this before they move into any portion of sovereignty, is that this is an ideology. This is a choice between being owned and being free. Mm-hmm. And your flag doesn't matter, because there is no flag on this world right now that represents that ideology. Mm-hmm. So to be patriotic, people say that I'm patriotic, and no, I'm independent. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I'm free. I'm free to speak my mind and think as the people who created or showed and enumerated this value system to people. And it doesn't clash with many religious aspects. Mm-hmm. But the whole idea is about each person being free and independent and in control of themselves.
Mm-hmm. So I would say, when you just described that, would you say that was the sentiment of the true founding fathers of the United States of America?
Absolutely. I think I'd love to talk about history, and I've spent about the educational process about 13 years educating myself on this, tracking down books that I was told I was not allowed to read within my own country about the people who created my own country. Mm-hmm. And they present this idea to the world about the founding fathers, and the system presents them as old, white, bigot, racist, hateful, greedy people who only cared about property.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Go on.
But, basically what I do is I try to tell people is that if they read the actual stories, Adams, Jefferson, these men came together and they extrapolated ideas and they actually worked through it verbally, man to man, and they came to the ideological conclusion, because people think that America, even really, that America is a Christian country. Mm-hmm. And America, as the way it was structured, has no religion, mm-hmm. and never will, mm-hmm. simply because it only recognizes the individual independent person.
Mm-hmm. The common law based on property rights.
Yes.
So I've heard many people say that common law is really God's law and is based out of the Bible, but I would say, well, that's not exactly true, because common law, you've got common law, but then you've got God's law, according to Bible and so forth, is more comprehensive. Let's say, thou shalt not commit adultery. This is not included in common law. Unless somebody wants to say, you cannot harm someone's property and then argue that a woman is somebody's property. I don't know if somebody would go there with that. But why don't you explain the three ways, according to common law, that you can actually break the law?
Well, I mean, that's quite simple. There are 3 ways to break the law. Everybody has the right to life, basically, as they look at it. And that is true. You do have the right to experience this world until you meet your end. So if you harm someone else's life, that is one way to break the law. If you harm someone's property, themselves, their goods, whatever they have worked for, whatever their actual energy that they expended on this planet. Even if you wake up every day and you clean poo off of the ground, whatever wealth came from that belongs to you. So if you mess with someone else's wealth, then you have broken the law because they earned it, you didn't, and you don't have the right to take it from them. And the third way is fraud in your contracts. In other words, if you set up a contract where within it there is definitely one person or party who's having the act of fraud committed upon them, then that is also punishable under the law.
Okay.
And that's it.
So, see, the way I look at common law, I see it almost as a sort of compromise or an agreement within general society that everyone can agree on these 3 points. Everybody with any scintilla of sensitivity would agree that, yes, these 3 points are very fundamental to keeping peace. And so then you could include all the religions. You could include any atheists as well within this. Everyone would agree on this, and then you would end up with a sort of a general peace, which seems to me not a bad plan. So, not a bad idea. So the Constitution, as I understand it, is, well, I'll let you talk about it because I know you're the expert on this. The Constitution was set up essentially to, to protect our rights that are naturally born in us. They do not give us our rights, but they are there. They're sort of a common agreement of what government can or cannot do. It's more actually a restriction on what government can do in order to keep that peace and to keep that common law in place and keep the peace, essentially. But I'll let you describe it for us.
Well, there's actually history that should be briefly covered.
Okay.
And most people may follow along with this, and they may not. But under most international agreements and ideas of a political matter or governmental status, whenever you create a document, if you change some portion of that document and then reproduce it or resend it out, it is not the same document. It is actually legally a new binding agreement. And that is exactly what you have here in this country. You have the original Constitution, signed, sealed, and delivered in the 1700s, and you actually have a reproduced new version of the Constitution, which happened around 1870 and finalized in 1871. And that is the basis, is that the original Constitution didn't do anything basically to the people. It did nothing. It was a declaration of restriction on the government. And the Constitution, when it went forward, it wasn't good enough. So then came the Empire States, because all of these people had to get together, basically in their individual little countries, and that's what they are, and vote on whether or not they wanted to agree on this social contract. And basically what happened is as they ratified it, and they were ratifying it, they said, this isn't good enough. So then came the birth of the Bill of Rights. And in the Bill of Rights, there was what's called a preamble. And every basic declaration of a people comes with some form of preamble or a statement of intent. And it was quite clear in several lines that it was a declaratory statement, and it was set in stone, and there was no option out of it. Now, of course, today, because we have allowed the governments to say, well, we can educate your children better than you. We can tell them what's going on better than you. Well, they have educated your children and people back into believing that all rights and orientations come from an established government, not from individual people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where, as we look at it, the Constitution was all about restricting the government.
Right.
And if you look in the 9th and the 10th Amendment, it quite clearly, depending on what version you look at, it says that any power we haven't given you or told you can have,
you don't have.
You don't have,
Mm-hmm.
and you can never have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.